Hello, I'm Vilma Villavicencio, correspondent for Poder Hispano TV, a bilingual platform that educates, informs, and raises awareness on topics that matter, that are important to the Latin American community. And today we will be talking with a subject matter expert in the field of insurance. We are very proud to have him online with us. Before that, I'd like to say that Poder Hispano TV takes great pride in working with skillful, knowledgeable entrepreneurs in the community that are subject matter experts in their field. And today we will be speaking with Jack Butler, president of T.E. Frugler Agency, an agency that has been around since 1963, located in New Jersey. I believe there are two areas, physical areas in New Jersey, one in Somerset and one in Newark. So I am so proud, Jack, to have you here with us, to have a very light conversation. And I do want to say thank you for all of your support to the platform, Poder Hispano TV, and to our licenciada Roxana Cedeño, who is the main correspondent and CEO of this platform. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'd like to start by opening up the floor to you so that you can tell us a little bit about your business and the type of insurances that you promote to the community.
Well, the agency we've been around, as you said, for many years, since the 1960s. We have two physical locations, one in Somerset, right in the middle of New Jersey, and Newark, New Jersey. So we have two physical locations. However, we do business throughout the whole state, and we do business multi-state, New York, Florida, Pennsylvania, as far away as California. There's 50 states. I lose track how many we're licensed in, but there's a necessity that we have to be in them. So, and as business and commerce grows as well. The agency itself, we have different divisions in it. We have a part of the agency that does your auto and your homeowners policies. Mm-hmm. So we have a multitude of companies that we handle the auto, the homeowners, and rental properties up to 4 families. So I have one division that just handles that. I have another division that handles commercial insurance. So the variety of businesses, whether you be a restaurateur, whether you be a contractor, a host of manufacturing, grocery stores, so on and so forth. We handle all of that as well. And then I have people that do benefits, your life, health, insurance, and so on and so forth, whether they be individual or group.
And for the purposes of today's interview, we want to focus on more on the commercial insurance. Okay. And tell us a little bit about, for the mere neophyte, the new entrepreneur, the new business owner, what are some of the commercial insurances that they must have? How do you start the process? And is it mandated to have commercial insurance in all of the states?
Great question. Okay, for one, you got to remember, if you're engaging into a lease, everything is contractual. So you're going to get a lease and you're going to have contractual obligations of what you have to maintain for insurance. So there would be limits of liability. Sometimes there might be property involved with that. So, it might be, when you're saying mandated, the state varies. Every state varies greatly because it's controlled. The insurance is controlled by the states. Workers' compensation. So if you have employees, mm-hmm. It's compulsory that you have to have workers' compensation for occupational injuries. So if any of your employees get hurt, you have to have that. That's based off your payroll. Depending upon what you do, it's a price, it's a percentage of that. So how they calculate what the cost of that's going to be, I'll give you an example. A contractor could pay upwards of 20% of his payroll to workers' compensation, whereas a store owner only pays 4% of his payroll to workers' compensation. To a restaurateur, like around 3.5%. Now, the people just starting out in the business world, you can get discounts on that as well as somebody that's been around for a while, that you can get discounts, more discounts on that if you show that you haven't paid out any claims. So you're compelled to have workers' comp. In a lot of states, if you're a contractor, you're compelled to have general liability coverage, and you have to submit a certificate of insurance to the state showing that you have that. In some of the states now, you're required to have bonding. Now, that's a difference between, the question comes up all the time, what's the difference between insurance and bonds? Okay, you have an insurance policy that covers you any acts of neglect that you have. So the proverbial, I'm building a house, something goes wrong, someone trips and falls on the job site, somebody gets hurt, you have coverage. Mm-hmm. However, though, what a bond does, it guarantees that the work gets done. So okay. That's the difference. In the state,
that's almost like an extra shield.
Yeah, the consumer department of the state mandated that depending upon how much volume that you do, they want every contractor to have a minimum of $10,000 worth of bonding. If you do more, it can be upwards of $30,000 to $50,000.
I think insurance, it's such an important topic, and it should never be undermined. And I think mostly in the Latin American community, I'm not sure that we're all well-versed or as well-educated in insurance and the importance of the financial safety that insurance covers for the business, whether it's small, whether it's medium, whether it's big. And so I'd like to know how your company reaches out to the Latin community to teach them on the complexities of what you're just explaining to me, because it's a very complex topic. And I know that, I know Jessica on your team is, I know she works with the Latin American community. Mm-hmm. How do you reach out to our community to really break down in very basic language the importance of insurance?
Well, it's not so much as reaching out to the Latin American community. Up here in the Northeast, we're all neighbors. So it's just insurance in a different language, as I describe it. I mean, my Newark office for many years, the majority of the business was conducted in Portuguese because it was in a very Portuguese Brazilian neighborhood. Due to the ethnic communities around here, and everyone's immigrants. I mean, my people came, from Europe, and we're all immigrants. When I was a young man, I could define where you were from by the town you lived in. And really, things haven't changed too much. Mm-hmm. The Latin American communities are defined by the towns that they live in. People have a tendency to stay together,
Go ahead.
No, and that being said, basically what we do is we explain it. I mean, it's the same business, just in a different language. Now, the importance of it is you have to understand what you're endeavoring in. So you really have to understand it. Now, granted, somebody might have an elementary understanding of English, but he's really not getting the complexity of insurance. And that's where having a Jessica in my office helps.
And that's nice. And that's a very nice layer of service that you have in your company, that you have someone that understands our community and our language to really explain and break it down. Because like you said, there's so many factors that are involved.
Correct. You're absolutely right. And that's, it's a foundation that we've been doing for 30 years, here in the agency. So we have Jessica. I mean, does a great job, very knowledgeable young lady. We have many others that speak Spanish, speak Portuguese.
And that's a beautiful thing that your company is labeled as a culturally fluent company, which you don't find much of, and so it's very welcoming. I think on the client perspective, we want to work with someone that's open culturally to mm-hmm. our community. And so, that's a factor that's always at the top of the list when I'm looking for a purveyor to work with. Now, how do you keep up? I know you're president of the company. I know you've been in the business for
on formal occasions, I'm the president of the company, yes.
And so how do you keep up with current trends, and how do your team members keep up with current trends? How do they learn what's going on in the industry with new laws, with new politics, with new management in, the United States?
Well, the agency is involved with the industry as a whole. So we have trade organizations that we're members of. Mm-hmm. But I tell you, one of the more valuable things that we have, it just occurred yesterday, and it's going to occur again on Friday, we have meetings. So we get together, and especially this time of the year, because things change. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no industry that stays the same. And especially the insurance industry, things are changing really on a monthly basis. So, we have meetings, we share ideas with each other. And And I think that's where really business is really failing everyone right now, because the terms of like apprenticeship, a tradesperson, knowledge isn't being passed down in somebody's living room. And that's really where the problem is these days, whether it be, especially in my industry, whether it be in underwriting, in claims, just knowledge isn't being passed down. The simple conversation that you would have with a colleague, you can express an idea or whatnot. I try to keep that here in the agency, is that the agency, we're a presence. We're in the office. If you need us, you call us, whether.
And you rarely find that number one, that there's a physical presence.
Correct.
So that's a big plus. And number two, communication, meetings. It's almost like the art of writing. It's gone. Kids today don't know how to write script. They don't even write. So that,
God bless the nuns that I went to school with. They tried real hard to teach me
my
script.
Catholic upbringing,
It didn't work.
I asked my son, who's 15, the other day, can you sign here? You have to sign this piece of paper. It was a permission slip for a trip. They don't sign. They don't know how to. Cursive writing doesn't exist
Correct.
anymore.
I think I was ahead of my time by blowing it off, but
Yeah.
instead,
But meetings, you don't see meetings. You don't see companies having, get-togethers with their
that's the
staff
American
members.
industry. It really is. That since COVID, the smart people, the people with the knowledge, I should say, are retiring, and there's no one to replace them because there's a void that's filled in there. You have some people that know concepts.
Yes.
But I'll share a story with you. I had a situation involving a claim. And I was talking to the claims manager. And we were going over a complex situation. And he confessed to me, he goes, Jack, he goes, a couple of years ago, I walked down the hall and over a cup of coffee, this would be taken care of. I don't even know physically where the claims adjuster is out of right now. And the further you get away, especially in the complexity of insurance companies, what they're trying to do is consolidate in areas where you have an educated populace, but you don't have to pay them a lot.
Exactly.
But they're disconnected from where they're doing business with. And that's a challenge that we have here that I face.
It's that personal touch. It's that being able to pick up the phone and speak to that team member that can execute a signature or approve a claim. There's so many layers of approval that I find in corporate America where you can't just get a yes. It has to go through legal. It has to go through procurement. It has to go
Nobody
through.
wants to be accountable for a decision. That's really what the problem
that's what it really boils down
No is
to.
always a good answer. That's a safe answer.
Exactly. You're right on point with that. So
You can feel my frustrations that I deal with. But here at the agency, we're a little bit different. And I always valued service. I always love sharing the story where I do business, I have relationships with people, some of them 20, 30 years. And they're always amazed when they come into my office that I have, over 20 employees. We have a big office, a professional location, because when somebody needs me, they call me on my cell phone. And
I don't like that anymore.
No. And when you have a question of your billing, you call the agency. If you have a claim, we put the claim in for you. So I pride myself on service. So when you go back and you say, like, how do I specifically, deal with the Latin community? I just do the same exact thing in a different language.
I love it. And, that's something that it's a trait. Again, like I said before, that's not common anymore. It's missing. And so keep it going, because I think that is really something that's an important factor in selecting from a consumer side, in selecting who you will work with. It's that
Vilma, there's a great saying: as much as things change, as much as things stay the same. Service used to be a factor. That's what defined who you did business with.
Mm-hmm. That's
it's
exactly
gone
right.
away. Now we have to hear AI is going to rule all of us.
They are taking over.
Place, but it's everything reaches a high point. And then it comes back down to what reality is. And
So
I think,
go ahead.
especially what we do in insurance, we have to talk to people. We have to understand what they do, and in order for us to better provide for them.
And we have a very young generation that's coming into the business world. How do you reach out to them? How do you manage that intergenerational, workforce? And do you find that it's easy to work with the younger? Do you find that you learn from them? Because I do find that I mentor the young and they mentor me. Is it a challenge for you, or is it something that you embrace and that you're bringing into
Really embrace it. I mean, you have to embrace it. And granted, the 40 years ago, the version of Jack Butler was questionable. It's people evolve, they grow. You go through different stages in life. Yes, you learn from the young. There's a lot to learn from them. I wouldn't be able to use my cell phone or my computer if it wasn't for some of them. So
good.
But yeah, and it's, to tell you the truth, it's exciting because here in the agency we mentored a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and no one really ever leaves. They're still here after 20 plus years. But a lot of us started out, some of the people that work for me started right out of college and high school, and everyone sort of grows together. So to answer your question, like from young people, yeah, you learn a lot from them. But I have hope in the future. A lot of them, they want to learn. They just don't know how because they were never taught how.
That's exactly it. The foundational structure that they're in right now in the education system, it's not like in my time, in your time, where there was very solid learning on the basics of home economics and the basis of business.
I
Right
agree
now,
radically. Everyone likes to sit back and comment that, the younger generation has no manners. They do. They were just never taught it. And once you teach it, or once they observe it, I guess is the best way, they learn real quick.
and that's it. They learn really quick. So it's a matter of how you structure your values at home, what your values at home are, because they represent you. So if I teach my son to, work on his general pleasantries, he'll work on them and he'll know that this is something that we value in our home. So yes.
And I think that's what the business community needs again. You got to get people interacting with each other.
Exactly. Interaction, social skills. I believe that, our young, they're smart and they can do anything and they can reach very high heights. But it's a matter of us, the older generation, to kind of teach them the ways that were taught to us.
Correct.
A question about entrepreneurs. How to have a successful business, you have to have a routine, right? You have to have things that you do.
I'm probably not the best person to talk to. What you have to do, again, work hard.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to surround yourself with smart people. I think that was my way of doing it. It's fun throughout my career. I love telling the story where one of my buddies, a good friend of mine, because you become friends with the people that you do business with.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Peruvian fellow. And 30 years ago, I remember being in his mother's garage when he was unloading charcoal out of a van, from South America, selling it to the restaurants, that make the chicken and the ribs. And
right.
Now he has a $25 million import business that he imports from South America and throughout Europe.
What a success story.
He makes really good ice cream, too. He doesn't make it. He gets it from this guy in Pennsylvania. Very good. Maracuja ice cream, my favorite.
Should try it.
That all started with a man covered in charcoal unloading bags. Contractors, the men that, dug ditches, and now they're multimillionaires. But the good thing about it is they're good to the people around them as well.
And that's, you mentioned an important word in the business, and that's relationships.
Correct.
And relationships will take you far. I would rather do business with someone that I've had an encounter with, coffee with, just a physical meeting with, versus someone that's just on the other side of the phone. So relationships, building those relationships, I think foster a lot of integrity into your business. And I think that's something that our young also need to know.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Vilma, because I have a new client that I bought on.
Mm-hmm.
And he was amazed that I actually went to see him. He goes, Jack, you actually come down here to see people. I'm like, Yeah. this, this, for one, especially for what we do, you got to sort of get a feel for what's going on so you're not missing anything. So that's why when we do insurance, when we assess a situation, I always kind of like to go and see for lack of better terminology, the lay of the land. Let's see what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Make sure
Absolutely.
we're not missing anything.
Mm-hmm. And that way you're able to better assess the risk. It's a better position for you to recommend the right product for the client.
Correct.
And speaking of the product for the client, what are some factors that you look into for a client? Say I want to go and get insurance to cover my beauty salon. What are some factors, or what is it that I need to provide? I mean, do you look at my credit score? Do you look at
You brought up a great point where credit plays heavily in insurance these days.
And not a lot of people know that.
No, from buying, especially in personal lines, meaning that your auto and your homeowners plays a huge factor in the rating. That's probably about 20 years since the inception that they brought in credit scoring when it came to that. It plays a big factor in commercial insurance because if you have bad credit, it's factored in there, in the actuarial analysis that you're heavier to have a claim if you have bad credit. I guess in the actuary's mind, they associate that with a poorly run business.
Very interesting. And I think that's something that should be highlighted to and I'm sure you do a good job at it, and Jessica does too, to highlight that to our community, because, it's
something where the Latin community sort of, they have a problem with that because a lot of people are new here. So you can't have a credit score if you haven't been here for a while.
That's also something that's...
So you start out at the bottom. There's no way to describe it more eloquently. It's just that you don't have a credit score, but you can work on that. So it's sort of, a 3-year, be cognizant of the situation for 3 years, and then it builds upon that.
And so are they able, let's say it's a freshly new entrepreneur that just came, let's say, from Venezuela, and they want to open up their business. Yeah. They have no credit history. How do you work with them? How do you get them started? Or do you advise them to build up their credit history and then start their business? You
start your business. You got to make money. I mean, we're all capitalists.
Right.
If it was so great where we came from, we would have never left. And that's for everybody. So we come to America. We want to work hard. We want to provide, for ourselves and our families and whatnot. So you start the business, but then you just become cognizant of it that, and granted, I mean, I'm sitting back 40 years, in the business. In the beginning, I mean, my first loan was my credit card at 24% interest. So you got to do what you got to do to get to a point. It's just that when you get to a point, you can't do the same silly things that you've done in the past. That's, I guess, the best piece of advice that I can give. So anyone starting a business, no, I mean, you're sort of going to pay a little bit more because you're a newbie. Now, granted, if you have experience, that's different. So say I'm a manager of a restaurant for 20 years and I decide to open up my own. Well, then that experience carries over and you could use that to your advantage.
Very interesting.
So every business, every scenario is different. But you brought up a great point. Credit is a huge factor now in insurance. And
what would you say are some other, if you had to name 2 other factors for the novice entrepreneur, what would those factors be? That
experience. You have to express your experience in the field in which you want to endeavor. So you need that, and that and a plan. I mean, this is how I plan on working. This is how I plan on achieving.
And when you say plan, you mean something structured like a business plan, deck, pitch, presentation, or
just when you speak to somebody, you could understand if they have a plan in their own head or her head, to do something. And that could be articulated through speech and so on and so forth.
Very interesting, because I was raised believing that I couldn't move forward with a business without having an actual sales pitch deck on a PowerPoint presentation. but that's the schooling that I got. But I do find, and I live in a town now amongst Latin American folks. Many of them are from Venezuela, from Colombia. They're all very entrepreneur. I came from New York, where, and I was born and raised in New York, where you're raised to believe that you have to work for a big company, be an employee for a big brand. Coming to Miami, living amongst Latin Americans, they're also entrepreneurial spirited. They all believe in
Sure.
having their own business,
Mhm.
which is something that I never really felt in New York City. I could never imagine having my own business in New York City because I was always under the belief that I had to work for a big company to make it big. But the beauty
Our
of
generation, Vilma, or more so mine, you're a lot younger than I am. Work for the big company. Now, my family settled in Central Jersey, so it used to be get a job with J&J, get a job with AT&T. You're set
that's
for the
my
rest
point.
of your life until
That's
the
my point.
1980s, and it all got dumped on its head. Now, did that platform work for my parents' generation? Yeah, it did. These companies provided well for them. They worked hard. The companies took care of them. But that's really changed from the 1980s moving forward. So, when it comes to entrepreneurship, I mean, look at the self-empowerment that DoorDash and Uber
Yes.
gave people. And I admire it immensely that, okay, you have a traditional job, but you want to make some more money.
Mhm.
Or you want to do an endeavor, something like that, but you really want to do it 12 hours a day. Amazon, they give opportunities to people to be their own bosses.
Yes.
And why not? That's what it's all about. So I admire that immensely.
I admired it too. And once I've been here in Miami for 11 years, and my whole mentality on how to do business is completely different. I am my own boss. A lot of my marketing is word of mouth, which is also something very important. You do well for your community, you do well for your clients, it will get around. And that's something very important that I'm sure your clients come to you because they've heard of the great, superb service that you provide to all of your clients.
I'll share a story with you, Vilma, that always makes me proud.
Go ahead.
I'm not from Newark. I've been doing business up there for 40 years. I can walk up and down the streets up there. A lot of these people are my friends. No one's running away from you. When you're in certain industries, like people perceive you as, especially being in the sales industry, it's this guy's trying to sell me something every time I see him, or he had a bad encounter, with the agency. I grew up around here. I walk in and out of all the establishments, so on and so forth. These people are my friends, my neighbors. Same thing in Newark. So that's probably my biggest accomplishment.
That's beautiful. And that's how I'm feeling now. Now that I'm not in corporate America, I do service corporate America, but having my own business, I have built beautiful relationships. I have kept the communication going. I teach about my field of expertise as well. And so, just being more free spirited has helped me also grow as a professional. But I want to thank you, Jack, for your time, for embracing the Latin American community, for teaching us about all types of insurance. I know that you go beyond the commercial insurance. And so I'd like you to tell the world where you're at, how to reach you, and anything else you'd like to say as a few words of advice to end.
We're the T.E. Fruller Agency. Again, we're based in Somerset in Newark, New Jersey. Call us. If anyone has any questions, I believe the contact information is posted on this website. Do you want to speak to us in Spanish? Granted, my Spanish is not that well, but I could order from the menu and muddle my way through a conversation. However, though, people would much rather speak to one of the other representatives that come from South America, the Caribbean, and Europe. So that are fluent in it. But by all means, and hey, like I said, when it comes to what we do, I do nothing different to people in the Latin community than I do people that are here. It's just in a different language, just given the same opportunities. But with the complexities of what we do with insurance, it really has to be explained, and people have to understand, what they're endeavoring in.
Exactly. And that's, I think, what makes you different. The fact that you sit down and you're able to break it down in a way that we will understand and we'll take the right steps towards what the target is.
People make the right decisions if it's given to them in an articulate manner.
Exactly. Making the right decisions. Well, Jack, thank you so much. Beyond appreciative for your time, beyond appreciative for supporting our community and for supporting Roxana Cedeño from Poder Hispano TV. I know that you're very much a big supporter and have been by her side.
Roxana is our friend.
Wonderful. Take care, Jack.
Stay well, though. It was a pleasure. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.